If I make a big thick brat. Last Friday, do you want to come here? Come on. Come on here. Come here. Hi, welcome to FiberLoveDiary. I'm Trish if we haven't met, and if we have met, welcome back. How are you? How is everything? Today is the winter solstice. That's December 21st, and it's the day when we celebrate the return of the light. So I'm pretty happy. The days are gonna get longer. Days stay the same length. The amount of sunlight we get is gonna get longer. I'm pretty happy about it. Last Friday, you guys saw a video where I made a Frankenbatt and I spun it and plied it all the way to finished yarn, and there were a lot of questions. I thought it might be smart to just sit with you guys and spin for a while and go through the questions, because I kind of feel like some of you probably have the same questions as someone else asked. So I made myself some cheat sheets. I actually posted on Instagram to give anybody else an opportunity to ask questions. I think there was only one, so that wasn't hard to do. And I just thought I'm gonna spin and go through these. In the comments, I do answer a lot of questions. And so part of me is thinking like maybe this needs to be a new part of the channel where I answer your questions in a video maybe every couple of weeks, or if something comes up and there's a ton of questions, maybe every week. I don't know. So let's do it. I'm gonna spin this. I think it's Rambouillet, pretty sure. That I dyed. It is called Love Affair. I showed it in my last update video. So the first question was about the liquor in on my brother drum carder. So the question was, do the fibers that are on it when you start out end up in your batt? And that is such a good question, guys, but it kind of opens a whole can of worms that I have to talk to you about. The only complaint I have about that carder is that I really like it in every other way, but the fibers really build up on the liquor in. And that's one reason, like some of you have asked before, why do you have two? So that is one of the reasons, because on the Strouch, they do not build up at all. They use a different kind of cloth that I believe is proprietary on the Strouch, and it just doesn't build up fibers. On your drum carder, on your big drum, you always have these pins that are bent roughly halfway up the pin. It's maybe not exactly halfway, but whatever. There's a little, I don't know, probably 45-degree bend or so on each one of the little pins, okay? Those are built to pull the fiber off the littler drum. There was fiber stuck to my hand. Pull the fiber off the littler drum and like hold it. So they're kind of built to scoop that fiber off and keep it on the big drum, okay? So that's good, we want that. If those same kind of pins are on the liquor, sometimes they like fiber builds up on there, but that can also happen because you feed in too much. It can also happen because it's really staticky. It can also happen because it's too short and doesn't get pulled off. Like that's not the only reason. But anyway, on my brother, and I have the same problem with the Big Tom from Fancy Kitty, they have the same kind of teeth. The fiber builds up on that littler drum way more than I've ever had on my other ones, and way more on the Strouch. Like I almost get nothing on that thing. The only time I get anything on that is if they're very short and they can't get pulled off. That's one of the main reasons that I have two. If I could buy the cloth that the Strouch people put on their liquor in on any other carder, or one of the really big carders, that would be like my dream carder, but you cannot buy it as far as you know. My husband actually talked to Otto Strouch on the phone and tried to basically get some of it so that he could do it for me, and he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. So, which I don't blame him. Because if you invent something really great, why would you like say, oh sure, let me just like give you this thing to turn this other carder into a better carder? Why would you do that? You're right. He's right. Wow, that was a long explanation. Do they end up in the Batt? They could. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility, but I usually evaluate, do I need to clean this time or not? Are they pushed way down in there? Are they a color that if a few wisps of it gets into my Batt, I'm not gonna care? Like those were charcoal gray, and if a few wisps got into a blue Batt, I didn't really care. So it could happen, but I just had looked at it and I was like, it doesn't matter, I don't care. Okay, the next question is, how much did the Batt weigh? I don't always do this. Sometimes I'm like really unscientific about all this stuff. You guys know this already about me. It's not a big secret. And the Batt, I weighed it right before I started to spin, and I split it into two so I could do a 2-ply yarn, and the Batt weighed 7.2 ounces, and I just split it to 3.6 each for the two mounts that I kept on separate ply. So I didn't really lose much. I know it looks like you lose a lot on the liquor, but it's because it like floofs out like Muppet hair, and it just looks like way more than it really is. When you mix fibers, how do I know what it can be used for or how to wash it? So I think that's a really good question. You guys know I'm not technical, and if I don't know for sure what something is, I will just assume that I have to hand wash it. And I don't mind hand washing stuff. I can actually put it in my washing machine on gentle with like 0 spin, and it does a really good job, and I've never had anything come out felted. Of course, and I would do that in cold water. I'm not 100% sure how do I know what it can be used for means. I really just evaluate the yarn to decide what it's right for, and I still get it wrong sometimes. I mean, I'm definitely no expert. I think you know that. And I'm not very technical when it comes to those kinds of things. So really, I'll just look at the yarn characteristics to decide if it is appropriate for a certain project. Like in this case, I would start with the weight of the yarn. It's definitely a bulky, but it's also very fluffy, and it's got quite a bit of spring and swoosh to it. So I would consider that. And drape is also a factor, but I don't think as much about like what fibers might be in it, because I frequently use blended fibers like wool and silk, alpaca and silk, wool and alpaca, bamboo with different things. Like I use blended fibers in a lot of different things, so I don't worry that much about that kind of stuff. I just try to decide yarn by yarn if it's appropriate for the project. Okay, this is a great one that I've had before. Why make it into roving, the Batt, instead of spinning straight from the Batt? I think when you have a Batt that size, for one thing, they can be quite hard to flop around and maneuver. I've seen someone wrestle with a big Batt before, and it doesn't look like anything I want to do. But also, as I said, when I was actually getting ready to pull that Batt through the diz, I said I'm going to attenuate this rolled up Batt a little bit. So when you do that, you kind of floof up and loosen the fibers and stop them from gripping on each other, and just kind of like make it easier to spin, make everything more airy, and that's something that I really like. In that particular technique where I rolled it into like a cigar and then went off the end, that would be an awesome technique if you had a gradient Batt. So I've had a few gradient Batts. I think they were from Into the World, maybe, I can't remember, where I was trying to decide how to spin them. If you had one of those and you wanted to spin it in like the gradient colors the same way that they are in the Batt, you could do that and roll it and take it off the end the way that I did, and you would get like a gradient yarn. So, I mean, there's actually quite a few reasons. I would say the last reason is that when you run it through a drum carder, the fibers do disorganize. Most of that started out as comb top, you guys saw. As I ran it through the carder and blended it all together, it got more disorganized than comb top. It's not like a roll egg where it's a spiral, but it definitely isn't all in one direction anymore. If you roll it into a cigar like that and then you attenuate it and draft it off the end into roving, you will get more of like a spiral effect in general in the roving, and it will make your yarn fluffier. That's something that is kind of hard to achieve with comb tops, so it helps to get them all like spiraling or going in different directions. You get more of a fluff from that. The next question, do I make stuff or sell most of my hand spun? I don't think I have ever sold hand spun yarn. I don't think I have. I do make stuff. I weave it and I like knit and crochet with it sometimes, but I also just collect it. It's really pretty. I have a couple shells of it, and I also keep every last little bit. Like if I have leftovers, I keep them all and try to do stuff with them all. The next question is, why do I call it a Frankenbatt? I think it's just because I basically cobble that bat together like a mad scientist out of bits and pieces of all kinds of different things. So I pull apart roll eggs. I will just pull the blue parts off top that I got in spinning boxes from yesteryear. I don't get them anymore. And so I sort of like, much like Dr. Frankenstein, kind of cannibalize everything that's available to me and then cobble a bat together out of it. And that's where they were born. I know there's some other people call them other things when they have tons of different fibers and all that in their bats, but for whatever reason it made sense to me, so that's why I call them that. I don't think anyone else does. Just me, the mad scientist of bats. One of you asked, the bits from the liquor that, you know, end up stuck on the liquor, would they be in the spinning fiber if you actually did this on a blending board and made a bat instead? So the answer is yes, probably. And then it said, is that one reason why the bat off the board is not as smooth? Okay, so this is a really good one. I love it. And the truth is, I'm not 100% sure what the answer is exactly. But I think that the reason why the bats that come off the carders are smoother is not because of the fiber. I think it's because of the movement and the like pulling that you get. What happens when you put it into the carder is the liquor grabs it and pulls it underneath, and then your carder comes back up on the other side of the liquor from the underneath and pulls that fiber off. And as it just like gets its teeth into a little piece of it and it's going faster than the liquor, it pulls it off, but it also kind of pulls it straighter, if that makes sense. And I think that's what makes it smoother, because it pulls it apart and it pulls it straighter. I don't know how else to say it. On a blending board, you don't get that same amount of pull of the fiber as you're transferring it onto the board. I think that's probably the reason. I could be wrong though, because I'm, again, not an expert, but I have used both and I know what you're saying, and I think that's the reason. I think they just get pulled straighter onto a carder. What do I do with the fiber that I take off the liquor? So that's a one that has kind of changed over the years. I save it now in a bag full of just weird odds and ends. And I have done different stuff. Like, I have put it out for the birds before. I've heard people say, don't do that. It molds, it does this, it does that. But here's my thing about that. If it were out naturally, like if I had a sheep farm or whatever, the birds would pick it up and use it in their nests and it would be fine. So I'm not sure I really buy into that. I do make sure that no fibers that are very long go out, because I wouldn't want a bird to get tangled up in something that's like really, really long. I've used it as mulch in my garden if it's natural color, undyed. The dyes that I use are non-toxic, but I don't know about dyes that come from other places, so I figure it's just best not to put that on my garden. I've used it to stuff little like animals that I knitted or crocheted or whatever, and stuff other things too. I mean, it's great for that. Obviously, it's been used for that for a really long time. So, but right now I have a big bag of it somewhere. So there are a lot of people who go ahead and spin it too. I mean, it's absolutely fine to spin that stuff. And it would probably make some really fun yarns sometimes. It's just be shorter and a little probably harder to get a smooth yarn, so you might want to not be married to a smooth yarn and just say like lumpy bumpy is going to be okay for me. So okay, we're down to 2 questions. The first question, I actually got a couple of questions about my diz, so I thought I'd show you guys better. And I guess if you guys would actually want a tutorial in this, I don't know if it's even necessary, because it seems like it's pretty, I don't know, self-explanatory might not be the right word, but you could figure it out. I made this one from polymer clay. Sorry, the light is really glaring. So I used the transparent polymer clay, and I used some alcohol ink to dye it like a kind of bluish green color, and then I used some rose gold foil on it to do like a, I don't know what you would call the technique, but and it like smushes it in. It's actually kind of a cool thing. And I have 3 different size holes, but they're not scientific. I just made 3 holes. And you know, I've heard people say like I've heard both, which is kind of crazy, that your fiber should be going into the kind of, what is this? This is the concave side, right? And then I've seen other people say it should go into the convex side. So your guess is as good as mine. But to me, my brain, it makes sense to have it go into the concave side because it almost works as a funnel, but you really don't need a funnel. So sometimes my brain works in ways that I'm not sure they make sense, but you don't need to get this fancy, even though this costs like, I don't know, $2 maybe. You can just take a milk cap and like heat up a screwdriver and make a hole in it. I mean, people do it successfully that way. There's actually probably a bunch of videos on how to make a diz. But if you guys are interested in a tutorial, holler, because I could do that I could hook you up, because I did make this. Last question, I can't spin while I answer it because I have to show you the tools. So it was basically, how do you get the fiber off the smaller drum, which is the liquor in drum, when it builds up like that. So I thought I'd show you guys the tools that I use. My favorite tool, well, I have 2 favorites really. My favorite, this is an Ashford doffing pin, I think they call it. The reason I like this one is because I can also use it to remove bats. And if I make a really thick bat, first of all, it's bent, but that's me because I'm a brute. If I make a big thick bat, I like this one because I can wedge under a little bit, and then I use the leverage from the length to pull it off the drum carder. The leverage to me is better than like the pulling of a hook. This is a doffer hook, doffing hook. I think it's a doffer hook, whatever. And this one I believe is Strouch. Is there a brand on it? I'm pretty sure it is. So this one works sort of in a similar way, but not. Okay, so in this case, you go along the bat and you use the length of it to provide leverage to pull it up, and I feel like that force is less likely to hurt you. With this, you scrape under some of the fibers and you yank them up, and you can only go under a little bit at a time, and it's like very, I don't know, jerky. I just don't like the motion of it. That sounds like a really weird reason, but it's the truth. And also I've noticed that you can see it probably, maybe you can't. Oh yep, see right against my shirt, you can see there's fibers hanging off it. That's the other reason I don't like this, because the way that you use this, I frequently get fibers that actually pull themselves up around the hook and then just hang off, and I don't like that either. So that's a silly reason, but I don't like it. Also, when I use this and I go under a good length of it, what I actually do is go under a short amount provide leverage to start breaking it, and it gets easier and easier as you pull them further and further apart. So I think the break is smoother with this, because I can get under a whole bunch and just sort of pry it up slowly, and then the break will be nice and smooth. When I use this, I get all these little like wavy end breaks. It's not a nice smooth break. I just don't, it's not as good to me. Okay, this is also a stretch tool and it's great. So this tool, you can see I like it, is called a Doffer brush, and I use it to get all the little fibers that are stuck on any drum. And it has, the pins on it are bent much closer to the rubber part of the brush, and then also they're bent, it's in a different direction than like the brush where you smooth the fibers down. So because they're in this direction, when you go down against your drum, let's do it this way. When you go down against your drum, you're like digging those fibers right out of there, and because they're longer than the pins on your drum, you can really get in there. And I can get like, I would say 99% of the fiber on my drums off with this, and it's much faster than trying to pick them off with either one of those little hooks. So I love this thing, and once I got a big drum, I really had to have one. So that's all the questions. You guys had a couple other extra comments that I thought I'd address because they cracked me up. First of all, the Will Ferrell t-shirt in the project update. I just thought it would be festive. It's Christmassy, and I thought, how fun is that, right? A couple of times during the video, like all I could see was the face. And I was laughing so hard, but I didn't plan that. I just thought it would be festive. I'm really glad that some of you got a kick out of it, because we all need a good laugh right now, don't we? And second, some of you guys commented on the face I made when I was going through those buckets of wool. So I actually made that Batt back in, I think it was October. I'm pretty sure it was October. So I don't remember what I actually pulled out of there and looked at when I did that. But I never realized that I make so many faces until I started editing things that I had recorded, because you know, you just don't see your own face like that. And I really didn't know that, and I just thought it was funny when I saw it, so I just zoomed in. Thanks for joining me for this video where I answered your questions on the Frankenbatt carding and spinning video. I hope you have a great week. It's kind of a different kind of Christmas for a lot of us, or a different kind of holiday season for a lot of us. I hope you have some time to get creative. So I'll see you guys soon. I love you. Bye.